We come now to, I think, the last recommendation from the Regulatory Committee in relation to new trading events and filming bylaws. Councillor Cooper, can I ask you to move that? And do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Tracy Mulholland. And I'll ask Councillor Cooper to introduce the item. And we have for this item, I see what's happened. Katarina, I think you're back at the table, and you're not this time. I've got Magda on this one, but this one may be Brianna. No, it's Magda again. Okay. So welcome back. Councillor Cooper, would you like to introduce?
And again, not much to improve on because we've had good quality development over time. So the main issue here is to clarify the need for the rental micro-mobility devices, or e-scooters, to be approved under their own licence instead of the kind of clumsy way of having a mobile shop licence. But this won't address, and please correct me if I'm wrong or clarify this, the road rules or AT rules or Waka Kotahi rules that apply. This will just be a better way of licensing. And also, there has been a good working group on this. There's been feedback from local boards and councillors on all of this as well. And I want to thank that working group for their input, because it gets these things to quite a finesse stage before we get to this point, and gives us a much better statement of proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Magda, would you like to add anything to that? Nope, that's fine. So we'll open it now for questions, and the first question is in the name of Councillor Richard Hills.
Kia ora, thank you, Chair. I'm just guessing that the only parts that are changing are the highlighted bits. It's just a bit hard to follow. Like, I've kind of read through it, but I don't know what I don't know. So is it just in the body of the text, the body of the report, the highlighted changes under one, have your say, like in the clarification?
That is correct.
Yeah, so it's just the highlighted bits, because I was trying to read it and I don't want to miss anything. Okay, that's cool, that's perfect. Just on the, it's not changing the right to protest at all, it's just highlighting that you don't need an event license or...
That's correct. So the current definition in the bylaw of the events included protests. The proposed new bylaw removes from the definition of events reference to protests, and the reason for that is that we do have to comply with the Bill of Rights regulations.
Okay, so it doesn't limit protest, it's actually making it... Okay, cool. Perfect.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pipakoon.
Thank you, tēnā koroa. Thank you again for this report. I have taken on board what Councillor Cooper said about this isn't about e-mobility, so I don't want to open up that can of worms, but I would just like to know when I can ask this partai, which is around, it's been brought to my attention that our licensing requirements around e-mobility is discriminatory to younger people who might rely on e-mobility for transport after 10 o'clock. And I just wondered, when is the opportunity going to be for us to have input into those rules or requirements? Because it is quite a big concern for young people who want to use e-scooters after 10 o'clock.
Through the chair, is that something we can just check separately for you offline with our lawyers? Sorry, we haven't had this matter raised quite in that way before in terms of discriminatory. So we would need to just quickly confer and get back to you. Would that be okay?
That's fine. I'd understood from reading the paper and from what Councillor Cooper said, this was largely that it's simply for mobility devices to be approved under their own licence rather than the mobile shop licence. So that's probably beyond what these changes are proposing. So that's a substantive point about rules relating to mobility devices, but that's not what we're doing here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify how I can ask that question in terms of a process if that's being reviewed, or I can just take it offline, I'm happy to do that, because
I think if you take it offline directly with the regulatory people, they'll be able to give you a direct answer on that. Thank you very much. Councillor Richard Hills.
Thank you, Chair. And it's probably outside, but I just want to raise it here, or a question really. Who and how, what part of council decides where these things can happen? So I know we're talking about e-scooters, but I'll just give you a quick example. Yesterday I went down to the bus, and around Commercial Bay now there is it says we can't park e-scooters there, but I would have thought that's public space, but I think it's Commercial Bay. I know this is not under here, but I don't know where we ever discussed that type of, how that just pops up. So who, is that AT or is that a regulatory team? Who actually decides that suddenly a public space is private?
I think it's our regulatory team that makes that decision. Look, there will be a whole range of questions about mobility devices. We haven't had a discussion on that for quite some time, but that's not what this paper deals with. I think if there's a desire to do so, we could get the manager of regulatory to come along and talk to us about those issues, or you could approach them directly. But I don't think it's fair to ask our officers here about that, because that's not what they're dealing with.
But if you just, everyone emails us your offline questions, we can connect you up with all the right staff who process those things.
And send them through to Craig, I think, is the person that is in charge of that. Okay, if there are no other questions, are there any comments? If there are no comments, I'm going to put the recommendations, and again, it's for public consultation. And I also want to acknowledge those that are going to do the hearings: Linda Cooper, Josephine Bartley, Shane Henderson, and Glenn Wilcox. So the recommendations are as set out, A to D. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I declare that carried.